There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you're joining us on Facebook Live or here in the Zoom room, just wanted to welcome you this afternoon. My name is Clementine Bordeaux. I'm here on behalf of Racing Magpie and welcome you to our presentation today as part of our seasonal programming called Winter Camp with Kevin Locke. And we're very privileged to have him here with us today. If you don't know, Racing Magpie is an arts and cultural organization founded in 2015 here in Mini Luzaha, Otumahe in Rapid City, South Dakota. We center the Lakota practice of being a good relative in everything that one does, and our work is focused on elevating and amplifying the ongoing work of community-based artists and culture bearers in the region. And as part of being a good relative, this program reimagines the Lakota Winter Camp model of problem solving, community building, and to think about examining the deeper cultural roots around the way Lakota people do things and how we interact with the world around us. While these events are open to the public, they will always focus on and uplift the larger Watjókeča community as both presenters and attendees. We want to thank the Bush Foundation for their generous sponsorship of the program. And if you would like to find other ways to support either Racing Magpie, you can visit our website, mail in or drop off a donation, visit our new space, or you can always support our artists. So you can support our artists by buying their work, hiring them out to come and visit your communities, downloading their music, or donating them directly. If you have questions throughout the presentation, you can either raise your hand in the Zoom room, or if you drop a comment on the Facebook Live, I'll be monitoring both the chat and the comments. Be sure to have lots of questions and feel free to reach out to me throughout the presentation. So without further delay, I would like to introduce Kevin Locke, who is a world famous visionary hoop dancer, preeminent player of Indigenous Northern Plains flute, a traditional storyteller, cultural ambassador, recording artist, and educator. Kevin is both Lakota and Anishnabe. While his instructions were received from his immediate family and community, from extended family in every part of the world, Kevin has learned many lessons in global citizenship and how we each can draw our individual heritage to create a vibrant, evolving global civilization, embracing and celebrating our collective heritage. So I will turn it over to you, Kevin.
Lila Pilama Naha. Oganash Tokaheya Telela Lakolio Gana Owagala Kingta, Obla Kingta. Chunky you ha Lila Chan Washington a page use up in Donna Lil Oya Pop in Naha. Wachale Wani Tipi, Eapi, Wani Tipi. Wachunky Miecha Wakbala Ekta Wahita Hanahe. Hani Owakpamani Shnihani Ituhu Chan Wakpala Eapi Wachanke Lila Ituhu Ote Chache Onaha Waniha Chashna Hel Wani Tipi. So I'm just giving everybody a greeting and a heartfelt handshake, and it's I'm really happy to be here at the winter camp. And the little community that where I have my home is called Wakpala. It's one of the 8 districts at Standing Rock, but that's also winter camp. I would just mention that that's where they have this a species of oak. It's called in English they call it black oak, because at Standing Rock they've got 2 oak creeks. In English it's the Oak Creek, but then the one in Lakota is this other one, this Ituhu, the black oak, and then the other one is Uta Uchan, the acorn. I don't know how to say it in English, but anyway, it's a different kind of oak. And So there's two different ones, but this one, that's also winter camp. That one, other one too. But this other one was where the after many of the people went for asylum to Canada in 1876, 77, right in there, after the Little Bighorn activities, and then the U.S. extradited a lot of the people. They put political pressure on Canada to extradite a lot of the people from there. So then many of them, of course, went back to different areas, but a lot of them just came back to that community there. It's a Hunkpapa community also, mostly Wakapala. Anyway, so that's a lot of information, but I'm relating to this this concept of Waniti, the winter camp, because that's really such a significant concept for Oceti Shakoan people, because these a lot of the activities throughout the year are preparing for the winter camp, and so they have to store up a lot of food, and they make a cache. I guess they call that woche, or a place where they would dig down into the earth, and they store up a lot of food down there. So there's places where there's where people know where those caches were dug. They have to get certain kind of soil, but anyway, they store up food. But a lot of people still know all these food processing techniques, like digging turnips and drying those, and then you have to get all the other different kinds of food at different times of the year. You get the champra, choke cherries and gapra, all that, and dry all this. So a lot of activities throughout the year are in preparation for winter camp. And then in the winter camp, that's where they always want to make sure that there's a spot where they have plenty of fuel for to take them through winter, and also food for their horses. And so this is why they go to the Black Oak Creek, or Wakapala area. And some people came from Europe, and they saw my wood pile because I burn wood. And they said, "That's all black oak." I said, "Yeah, that's good. That's my firewood." I said, "That's really valuable wood." They said, in Europe, they use that for all kinds of furniture and all kinds of handiwork and crafts. And they said, "Well, you're welcome. Take as much as you want." I said, "Here we can use it for keeping our houses really warm." But anyway, so they would. This is the time when the kids would. Little kids, they have these storytellers, people who are really gifted at communicating the traditional narratives that serve as the foundation for the identity of the people. So that's where they get all these stories. You probably heard of them. They call Ohunkaka Woyakapi. I guess they would say winter stories, but they have all these different characters such as Ikitome, and many characters like this. And so that's where those come from. And they tell those stories usually after the first frost. I guess traditionally they tell them after the first frost, and probably when they get more settled into the winter camp, whenever that is. And then they usually go up to when thunders come back and everything starts to change, and probably this would correspond to later in March, or sometime in March or maybe April. Then they can break back up into their other activities. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention a little bit about that winter camp, and that's such a great idea. And I'd like to introduce another topic here, if I could. And this is this topic of the flute. And I wanted to mention that because last week, the South Dakota State Legislature passed a bill to recognize the indigenous flute as an official state instrument, state of South Dakota. state of South Dakota instrument. And so that's really notable because I think that's the first time that a state in the United States has acknowledged an indigenous musical aesthetic or musical instrument as its state instrument. So that's historic. I think in Hawaii they have the ukulele, and of course the Polynesian or the native Hawaiians, they have really taken that ukulele and made it into a real traditional instrument. But it's not something that they had before European contact. Whereas the flute is, these are, it's a real instrument. And I wanted to mention a little bit about this, since it is now, as of a few days, about a week now, it's an official state instrument. And I wanted to mention a little bit about it. Is it okay to talk about it now? Okay. Yeah, it's okay. And anyway, I got introduced to this years ago. There were flute players around different communities, and oftentimes, you go to powwows, and maybe during supper break or something like that, the committee might call on some of these traditional flute players to come out and play the flute. And there are some, notably like from Rosebud Reservation, there's many notable flute players. There was Richard Fullbowl. There was Dan Red Buffalo from Oak Creek. That's another Oak Creek, see? But that's the one I'm talking about now is the one that's just, east of Mission, that one. It's from there. And then there was also Henry Crow Dog, from down there by Grass Mountain down there, Crow Dog's Paradise. That's Leonard's dad. He was a flute player too. And then like at Sisseton, there was Dave Marks. So there were a few here and there, not many that I remember. That's just from my memory. But still, this is a tradition that's within our memory, see? And then all those old time singers, all of them, they knew those songs that go with the flute. They knew them. And one time I was going to school at Spearfish, and then we went down to Vermilion. And this was in 1972 in the fall. They had some kind of a big symposium at Vermilion, and they had Richard Fullbowl, who was from St. Francis. He's from there, Rosebud Reservation. But anyway, they invited him to come down and share his what he does. Well, he made beautiful flutes, and he would really make beautiful flutes. The way he would carve them out, and he would with the mallard head on there, and he'd paint it really nice, just the way the mallard ducks, the way they look. And he even put a little tongue in there too. I don't know if mallards really have tongues, but he would put it in there. And then he would put all these beautiful feather work and paintings on the flute. It's so beautiful. And so anyway, he was demonstrating some of that. He had a lot of flutes out, and then he was demonstrating some of the traditional songs on the flute also. But I kind of got late, so I was way in the back. So then after he was done, everybody left. He was putting everything away, and I went up to talk to him, and I was admiring his work. I wanted to see his work up close, and then he said, then I said, "Oh, I really love what you do. It's so beautiful." And he didn't say too much. He was very friendly man, very talkative, very friendly man, but he was really busy putting everything away. And then I asked him. I says, does anybody in your family carry this on, like, or any of the community or relatives? Do they do this? And he said, no. He said, no, they're not. They're not doing this. I said, what about your kids or grandkids? He said, no, none of them are interested. He said, they're not interested. I said, that's too bad. I said, that would be great if somebody could take this up. Then he was busy putting stuff away, and he put everything down. And then and he looked at me. He says, "Yeah." He says, "You're right. He says, "Somebody should do this." He says, "And you," he said, "you're the one." says, "You're the one." He says, "You can do this." He says, "You should do this." So then I didn't say anything, but anyway, I just shook hands with him, and then. But he was really old. He was really old. I think he was born in the 1870s or something like that. He was really old. But he passed away kind of shortly after that. I was at my mom's place, and then we were talking about that, and she stopped, and then she went out of the room, and she came back, and here she had one of his flutes, and she handed that to me, and so then I took it, and I was looking at it, and then I tried to get a few sounds out of it, and I passed it back over to her. She said, "No," she said, you keep that. You keep that flute. This is not doing any good here. It's just collecting dust here. Just keep it." But my mom had these old recordings of they were on these big vinyl discs, these 78 RPM recordings. And she had this one recording that was really good. There was a man from Pine Ridge, and his name was John Koloff. His name was John Koloff. And there's still Koloffs around. There's some right there in Rapid City too. Some of that, maybe you know some of them, but they're all descended from him, this John Koloff. And he was his dad was from Russia, and his mom was in Oglala. So his first language was Lakota, and he could speak Russian, and his third language was English. But he was like a Renaissance man. He was really so gifted. He was really gifted. So he was the official interpreter there at Pine Ridge Agency. And so that most of the people were monolingual. They only spoke Lakota. And so, but he was such a gifted linguist. He was official translator. So then there was a Library of Congress researcher. His name was Willard Rhodes. Willard Rhodes came down. This is in the 30s, almost like 90 years ago or so. Came to South Dakota, but he was at Pine Ridge too. And so then he hired this John Koloff as a translator. So they went around, they recorded a lot of people. I think not just at Pine Ridge, but other communities as well. And then they, just kind of an aside, they found out that this John Koloff was a good singer. He's a really good singer. And he played the flute too. He was a flute player. And so then he did some recordings, and that's on that vinyl disc that my mom had. So those were the first songs that I learned. I'll play one for you. The first one that I learned off of that, like this is like 50 years ago. Here we go. But yeah, if you ever hear these old recordings, some of them are in wax cylinder too. They recorded not just Lakota, but like Ho-Chunks, Winnebagos from Wisconsin, Mishkwaki, from Tama, Iowa. There's a lot of wax cylinder recordings from like the late 1800s, early 1900s of flute players, but they would always sing the songs. They always emphasize this. All the songs are from vocal composition. So I'll do that first song. You can hear it. Namik suya le mi Shich toyo wapiki le ha Namik suya le mi Haya wa maya la kinte shni shash Eha kale shope tu yo yo hiwa Maya la kit she toro ha namiksuya so that's the first song that I learned. And so it's off that vinyl disc. So then there was more too. He would play them, record them. And then so I'd like to, I started building up my repertoire. Like I said, this is 50 years ago. And then I started getting invited to play at powwows, supper breaks. And then whenever I do that, then people would come around and they'd always say, well, we have songs from our family, because these are something that were of great interest, because it's really a poetic tradition, because it has a lot of these beautiful expressions, grammatical structures, vocabulary in the language. You see, like even that song that I was playing, it's got that one word in there, ehakal esh ampetu yohi wa onkichian copy. See, anyway, so these are really cool words, like they're from pre-reservation days, but those songs are just full of that kind of vocabulary. And oh, by the way, do you know Delaney Apple? Delaney, he's there. He has a lot of those songs from, I don't know where he got them, but he's got a lot of them. I see he puts them up on Facebook. They're beautiful songs. You check it out. He's got those. And so then, so that I would begin to play those and start to build up my repertoire. And I got different flutes too. I got a flute from Oklahoma, a Kiowa style flute. This is like years ago. And I also have one from Dan Red Buffalo from Oak Creek. About 40 some years ago, before that I went to school at Haskell, and my buddy from Tama, Iowa, later on he died, and his folks took me for a son. And so then my Mishkwaki mom, she passed away quite a while back, but her grandfather was a flute maker, and then he made flutes back in the 1800s. And so I even have that one too. It's like probably 130 years old or so. And so I'd play these songs on those flutes. And then here's what happened. I'll tell you what happened. So eventually, like maybe in the 80s sometime, somebody had this flute and it really sounded different. And then they started to play it. And then I said, let me see that. And I looked at it and I couldn't play anything on it. And I said, what kind of flute is that? And they said, well, this is a Native American flute. Native American flute. I said, well, it's no good. What you have here is no good. You can't play any of our songs on these flutes. You can't play them. They said, well, this is a Native American flute. And so I always wondered what that Native American flute was, where it came from. And then I'd asked different people, but then finally, way later, I'd say maybe about 10 years ago, after I'd already been playing the flute for 40 years, I finally found out this Native American flute was invented by a Watļókeča guy, I think around 1980 or something like that. He was invented by a Watļókeča guy who took the way it looks, the same kind of a way these are made out of cedar. They use a little piece of birch bark right here to make the sound. But you don't need the birch bark. You can build it in there. But the aperture for the sound. But anyway, this Watļókeča guy took that idea like that, and he put it's an instrument from Japan called a shakuhachi. And so he used that tuning. There are different pentatonic tunings, but this is a pentatonic tuning known as a melodic scale. So you pick it up, every note sounds good. So then he put that in there. And then there was a Navajo man who took that Native American flute. He started doing recordings. These recordings went like platinum. They went all over the world, and there was just an explosion all of a sudden. And then pretty soon, thousands and thousands and thousands of people started making these Native American flutes, recording on them, singing. I mean, not the singing, but recording them and selling it. So it's kind of like a commercial explosion. And before you know it, all over, that's what they have. They sell these recordings, these flutes everywhere. You go all over, like Prairie's Edge, you go to Crazy Horse, you go to Mount Rushmore, everywhere you go, all the airports you go to, that's what they sell. But that's not that's what they call a Native American flute. Has nothing to do with our traditional flutes. It's not it. People don't know that. Even Indians don't know that. They don't know that because they're younger. They're never exposed to this older tradition. But they call that they call these in the L dialect, we call it shiotanka or flute, and then they like at Sisseton they call it chotanka. That's a slightly different word, but it's the same thing, chotanka. And the tradition behind the flute, it's all based on vocal compositions. So all the songs that are played are sung also. And it's not just the Lakota, but they all do that. I remember, excuse me, I gotta plug my thing in here. But all these older people, they were always referenced their music with the vocal composition, not just Lakota, but all of them. I remember back in the 70s, I was going to school in Vermilion, and there was a man down at Macy, Nebraska, John Turner was his name, Omaha man, old man. But he played the flute. He'd always, every song, he'd always sing it too. I have recordings of him when I visit him. There was another man from Winnebago, Nebraska. His name was Watҷókeča Smith. Watҷókeča Smith. He did the same thing. Same thing. Everywhere you go, it's the same, like that. But then this Native American flute came in there, and then suddenly it's all forgotten. It's all gone. It's all gone. But I go to schools. I do flute workshops. We make flutes, and we use the traditional tuning with the kids. And so I've been to so many schools. I was down at Todd County here. They had a little break in between the Delta and the Omicron. I was at Todd County. I think we made 70 flutes down there for the kids, and they did a concert at the upper elementary at Todd County. So yeah, I want to get back into that as soon as I can. As soon as the kind of Omicron subsides a little bit, then I think it'll be okay then. But I've got something coming up in a couple of weeks over by Sisseton too, so we'll do that over there. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention was this tradition that we have. And so that's what I told those legislators, that when you pass that bill, make sure you do not put Native American flute in there, because that's not our instrument that we use. I don't knock it at all. It's a good thing, because when you pick it up and you hear it on all the TV programs and the movies, that's what you hear is Native American, because every note sounds so good. So it's basically an instrument for improvisation. It's for improvisation. And there's a story about the origin of the flute. And I'll just tell this, and maybe if there's any questions or comments, I'll tell that story. And so there was this is actually a story from Henry Crow Dog. It's not my story, but it's from him, from Leonard's dad, Henry. And I think there's different ways you could tell it, but anyway, so the basic part of it was that there was this young man, and he was out hunting, and he came on the tracks of an elk. See, that elk is a really important part of the story. But anyways, he followed the tracks of the elk, and it kind of led him up into a certain area that he had never been to before. It's very mysterious. It was different terrain, different area, but he still followed that. But then he got somehow he got like some kind of overwhelming fatigue or tired feeling. And so then he might have kind of dozed off, and he had this kind of a dream where he heard something, and then when he woke up, then he followed that sound that led him up to a tree, and he got up closer, and he could see that there was was like a branch of that tree sticking out. A branch was sticking out. And then as he got up a little bit closer, slowly, of course, because it was very mysterious occurrence for him, then he figured out what it was. I guess the branch of that tree had been hollowed out by termites. There were some insects of some kind that had gotten in there and made a nest or colony in there. So they must have hollowed that branch out. And then a little woodpecker came along and made a meal out of those insects, but had to make holes on the upper side of that branch. And so I don't know if it was like one woodpecker, maybe a few of them, I'm not sure, but they were going back and forth, eating their food, those insects. But as they were doing that, then there was some kind of a nice, steady, consistent breeze coming across the edge of that branch. And so this was what was creating this sound that this young man heard. And so they say that this flute was a gift that this young man received. It was a gift, and it was from the 4 different elements or aspects of from nature, from creational, like the wood, the tree, of course, and then the insects, and then the bird, the little woodpecker, and then the wind. So those 4 contributed. And then there's even supposed to be a song, original song, that this young man was received and brought. And I'll play that. Do you want to hear it? I'll play that. It's supposed to be, I don't know if that's really true, but it's just what I heard. But anyways, like I say, I'll sing it too. I'll just play it and I'll sing it one time through. Hey, all right, thank you. So these are, we did do a recording of all these, a lot of these songs. It's the only full-length recording of that genre of music, and it's called Lightning and Wind. Lightning and Wind. So you can probably get it, or if you want, just go on my website, kevinlocke.com. I can probably get you connected to that. But anyway, so this is kind of a victory or a success of in the state of South Dakota, is to recognize this instrument as an official state instrument, because I think it's going to go a long ways in just creating understanding, and then we can reclaim this instrument, because now there's a lot of interest in language revitalization, and so it is really a classic poetic form. You could probably hear just those 2 songs that I did. There's like a formulaic rules of composition of these songs. It'll have like one phrase. At the beginning, it'll repeat usually 3 times, and then it's be kind of mysterious. You don't know what it's about, and then the then the second part of the song will be a lot of text, a lot of lyrics in there, and it'll kind of give meaning to it. It's almost like it is a form of poetry. And then the last part of the song will go back and it'll repeat that. So it's quite different. It's really a unique. It's structurally, it's very aberrant. It's very distinctive from other genres of Lakota music, or not just Lakota, but Watjókeča, Mishkwaki. They all have that same pattern. So it goes way back into pre-reservation days, and it's spread out all through the Great Lakes and the prairies, and they all compose their songs that way. So it's not just like a brand new fly-by-night thing. It's a really a well-rooted tradition that we have in our region, poetic form. And I really like to see these younger guys come along and they can start composing in that genre. Now, traditionally they use they're kind of romantic themes on there. If you really explain it, these the text of the song, they're really romantic themes, and some are good, some are bad, and some are ugly. So you got everything in there, the different things. They call those they call them wi'iloa. So you can hear that singing for the woman. And then in Sisseton, they call it wiku doa. See, it's different meaning, but there's different words, and they kind of fit the different categories of the songs too. See, so there's it really goes in depth, but we don't want to really get into all that right now. But I'm really glad that we're making headway to bring this real wonderful legacy back. Now, I don't know if there's any questions or comments or anything.
Yeah, we have some from the from Facebook. So Mahbia Tumi says, Lila Wopila Tanka for your contributions to the Lakota Nation and beyond. And then we have one question from Jamie Hawkins, who asks if women can play the flute as well, or is it just men?
Well, I think, traditionally, the women did not play the flute, but I think personally, that's just me. Maybe we have to call the culture police on this here. And but for me, when you're down to almost nothing, then we have to use all of our human resources. That's my own personal belief. And I do a lot of flute workshops, and always my best students are the girls. They're the ones that really catch on, they get it. And those are my champions, my main support. Those, I usually like with the flute, it's okay. Like third is kind of young, but fourth and up is pretty good. And those girls are really good because, they have to, they have to have their finger size has to be able to cover the holes really good. So that's why I usually go from third is okay, but fourth and up is usually pretty good. But yeah, those young girls. I'm not saying anything about the boys, but yeah, it's okay. But another reason why I don't I teach all different kinds of songs, but the music is a great strategy for language revitalization. And you can play anything on the flute too. You can play you can play round dance songs, powwow songs, anything on there. Sounds really good. Sounds really good when you play it on the flute. Yeah. So that way you can, because not everybody's a singer. See, like me, I don't even sound good in the shower, but I still like music. So then we can have that's one more outlet or avenue of expression that we can incorporate and utilize. And then this is also, for many people, this is a major entry point for getting interested in the language is through the songs, through the music. So then the flute is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. My Lexi John Dwayne asks how you feel about the evolution of vocables in Lakota songs and what this evolution might mean with the change and the evolution of vocables.
Oh yeah, the vocables. That's just like just, but all cultures use those. All of them. Just like you get deck the halls with boughs of holly, and it goes la 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 la. So that's vocables right there. So all cultures use them, but I think what happened was that maybe pre-reservation days there was more songs that were just dense with lyrics, with words, word songs, and then I think that's probably the way it was. I'm not sure. But then what happened was that there was a lot of restriction on music, and powwows were all outlawed. But then at a certain stage, people began to travel and began to share music. And so they probably began to make maybe from one tribe to the other, songs were traded, songs were gifted or whatever. And so then they would just take those words out and put vocables in there, at least initially. I think that's what happened. So it's just a natural thing, and it allows for a lot of intertribal sharing of music, a lot of exchange. And so we can see this great explosion of music. You go to the powwows nowadays, and seems like 90 or 95% of the songs are brand new songs. You didn't hear them last year. They're all brand new. They just make new songs. And with words and without words, or with vocables. So I think it's a great thing, in my opinion. It's great. I think, to me, it's harder to learn songs with vocables because you don't know which vocable to use, whereas if it's got words, and so you know what word to put in there. Yeah. So it's more challenging, I think, to sing songs with vocables. That's my opinion.
Cool. We have a follow-up question on Facebook. So someone has a flute and wants to learn how to play. What advice would you have to begin the journey? Where can they start?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, it depends on what kind of flute that you have, because currently the only kind of flutes that people are making and selling, like I say, Prairie's Edge, everywhere you go, are the Native American flutes. And I personally don't know really much about that. I think that's because Native American flutes it's not a native tradition. It's not an indigenous North American tradition. I think it's from Japan. So maybe you go to Japan and find out, but I don't know. But what people do with the Native American flutes that I know of, they just do improvisation. They just whatever comes to mind. Now you can do that on these too, just as well, because you can get the same scale on this. This is actually a much more versatile flute. These the shiotanka or chotanka. They're more versatile. You can get a lot more music out of this than a Native American flute. But it's just that they're currently hard to get. They're really hard to get. There was trying to get Brian Akipa from Sisseton. He's for many years he was the only guy on the planet. I think he's the only person on the whole planet making these. The only guy making them. It kind of died out. Everything switched over to Native American flute. But I think it's going to start coming back. And when I go to the schools, that's what I make with the kids. Is I make the traditional tuned flutes. Yeah. But what I do, I have to confess this. I have to admit that what we use is it's a synthetic material. It's a food grade plastic. The reason why is because if you wanted to make the traditional use wood, then you have to use use a lot of tools to make them, and they're so you have to it's hard. It would take a long time. You'd spend like a week making these flutes with a lot of the shop materials, and then they're very fragile too. So once they make them, like the third or fourth grader, they're going to last maybe 30 or 40 seconds once they make it. They could drop it or bang it or something, and boom, it's cracked. So these are good. These are really good. These this synthetic material, and they sound really good. And I can get the do the instruction with those, and then hopefully people start to make the wooden flutes more, especially now that it's an official state instrument. People start to kind of get with the program now. It'll be good.
Well, those are all the questions for now. If folks have other questions, we have Kevin for a little bit longer. So if you have questions, and you can post them in the Facebook comments on our video or drop them in the Zoom chat. Yeah, I've really enjoyed learning about, I didn't know there was a difference between the flute that you were playing versus like that generic Native American flute that we hear all over the place. So it made me very excited because I love learning about the things that we've created in our culture that are significant to us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do workshops over there, wherever, like in Rapid, it'd be good. I know I've got to go in a few weeks. I've got to be over in Phillip and Kadoka, so that's pretty close. I'll just go over to Rapid and we'll do some workshops. Just let me know. I'd be glad to do that. And make flutes. I'll teach you songs. We'll learn songs, and we can do a little concert too, right on the spot. It'll be great. It'll be really good. So yeah, I'd be so happy to do that. But yeah, this word shiotronka, it also refers to the eagle bone whistle. A bird bone whistle is also shiotronka. They could also call these, to differentiate, we could call it wiikijo. We could call it that too, wiikijo. But the generic word is shiotronka. And if you ever look at an eagle bone whistle, they use them for praying. They pray with them. But if you look at there's the two bones in this part of the eagle wing, and the thicker one, the bigger one, is the one that they use. It's kind of has a concave or convex shape. And so when the person who makes the eagle bone whistle, of course it's it's got the concave, the bent shape. But if you flip it over, then there's a little pinhole on the inside of the concave, and then on the other side, that's where they notch it. They notch it right there. And so the technology for making the eagle bone whistle is exactly the same technology for this. You see, that's why I say it's really a traditional instrument, because these bird bone whistles, they go back in the archaeological record 40,000 years. That's 40,000 years in the archaeological record. But the wooden flutes, they don't go that far back because they deteriorate. They don't preserve that well. But so we know that this flute here has a long history. So that's why we don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose it. We want to keep it alive. We want to keep it alive. And that's why I really love to go to the schools and get the kids. I can even teach them some heavy metal songs if they want to learn that.
That would be great. I have a colleague that is studying or she actually gave a presentation a couple weeks ago in a winter camp, but talking about res heavy metal. Yeah. So I think it would.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can do that. Any kind of a song they want to make, they want to compose, we can play it on these flutes. It's really good, really good. Yeah.
So my Uncle John had asked about the whistles, but you already explained, which I thought was really great. And then we had just some affirmations about attending workshops if we had them in Rapid City, and then more folks saying Wopila Tonka. And then we had a question about the types of wood. So I think you mentioned your flute is cedar. Are there other woods that people use to make the flutes?
Yeah. I think traditionally, the people would like to use those the Western red cedar, and they have to pretty much go to the Black Hills to get it, and they have to probably get it about this time of year, like maybe in February or somewhere when the sap's down. They'll get it, then they have to cure it, let it go for maybe, I don't know, probably a year or so. But then they have to get a branch that's really straight grain, so then they could split it down the middle. And so I think the cedar, it just lends itself more for construction of the flute. But I think also it affects the sound too, because it's got a really nice, just the texture of the cedar is such that it's got that really nice. It creates a good tonal quality in the sound, and then also it's kind of interesting because when you so like I said, they split the branch, and then they'll be in two halves. Then they have to take the center out, the pith out, and so then that center of the branch of cedar, as you know, it's really aromatic. It has that very beautiful fragrance, and it's got a straight grain. It's got a beautiful red color to it. So it represents the heart, our hearts, So then the flute maker has to take that heart out of the cedar, but then the flute player has to put it back in there. So you have that kind of that mutual interaction there between the maker and the player. And yeah, so that's how they do that. They do that, and like I say, when it's put back together, there's a little part. These are two chambers from this hole here to the mouthpiece. That's the air chamber. That's the air chamber right there. And then from this hole down to the end here, that's the sound chamber. And then this little piece of birch bark. It's a little piece of birch bark. You can see it there. And then so that just slides so that the air will be channeled down underneath this block once I slide that block. And that's the aperture right there. That's what creates the sound. And that's essentially the same it's really inspired by the eagle bone whistle. That's where they get the idea for it. So whoever was inspired to do that. Well, they say that it was the woodpecker, but the woodpecker was not that smart, I don't think. They figured that out. They figured out how to make these flutes. Yeah.
We had the poor woodpecker. What if the woodpecker was smart?
Maybe they were. I don't know. I just said that. Slip of the tongue.
Yeah. Lakshmi John also asks if you know anything about elk whistles.
Yeah, these that bull elk, it's got that real that sound that it puts out there. It puts that sound out, and that's how it communicates with the female elk. And so then that is connected. That's connected to the flute. So they call that Hehaka, Ihambala, Okolakichi. It's this. They have this organization of people. I guess they just call them elk dreamers. In English, you'd say elk dreamers, right? And so this apparently some of these guys who belong to that organization, they have certain gifts, different kind of medicines, and they have different kinds of understandings. And then some of them also, they say, are the ones that create these songs. So the songs are supposed to be kind of like magical. I guess they kind of like they're magical songs. They have that power. I don't know. It doesn't work for me, but apparently for some people it probably works. But so they would be able to create these songs, And maybe they made the flutes too. Maybe a lot of them did make these flutes, because if anybody has an opportunity to do this, go to if you ever get to St. Francis, South Dakota, go to the Father Beagle. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That's what I heard. Beagle Museum. It may be, I don't know if they're closed, but if you make an appointment ahead of time, I think I don't know who the archivist is there, who's ever in charge of the archives. Tell them you want to see their flutes. And they have the most beautiful flute collection in the world. I think it's some of the best flutes in the world are right there. And probably those flutes were made by these Elk Society members. The way that they're so meticulously and beautifully carved. It's just like it's a work of art, really, to see them, how they carve those. But I'm just putting that out there as a recommendation. Maybe some of the listeners or people here today live close by. Maybe you haven't seen them. I don't know how often they put them out on display, but I happened to be there one time when they had it out on display, and it's mind blowing. Otherwise, they might store them somewhere in the back. I don't know.
Cool. We should go liberate those flutes.
Yeah, go take a look. Yeah, they have some at the Journey Museum. They have some there too. You can see them, but the real best collection is over there at. They have some in Europe too. I was in Berlin when after the Iron Curtain came down, they got a lot of these collection back, because during the air raids, a lot of Berlin was leveled off. But that archivist who was there in the 1930s, he scattered the collection, but they managed to get it all back together. I was there in 2000 in Berlin, and they brought the collection back, and they had those flutes from like 200 years ago in there. It's pretty amazing. But they're all over Europe. They have flutes all over Europe like that.
Yeah, I would love to see them either come home or be played again. I'm sure they're sad being dormant.
Yeah, homesick.
Yeah. So I know we just have a couple minutes left. Maybe is there a song you can close us out with?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do another one of these songs. Like I say, you can play any kind of song, but I just since a lot of people never hear these, all the communities have them. They all have them. You could go around, Wambali or anywhere, and these older people they knew them. Some of them still know them. These songs, but here's one from Standing Rock from Cannonball. I'll play it here, and I'll sing it. Tokaheya mayale soyo Tokia amayale soyo Toyokia ya amayale soyo ay Duwaya he chon chaya ai waha kuyo yo kiya amaya le soyo. Hey. So you can, that's this girl, she's really popular, so a lot of guys, they wanted to, they want to ask her out for a date. And then this guy, he asked her out for a date, I guess. And she says, Tokaheya Inajin. He says, in other words, like, so now where do you think you're going with that? She says. And then she says, whenever somebody does that, I just laugh at it. So she slam dunked that guy, see? But see, like I said, they're all different themes, you know, all different kind of themes. But it just, what it does is these older songs, they give you a little snapshot of like pre-reservation life and how people are living, what they're thinking about, you know, these songs, they have a lot of entertainment value. So even during early reservation days, people would always, you know, share those kind of songs and keep them alive like that.
Cool. It sounds like there's some lessons to be learned too in those songs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Given the shaft to folks.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciated you sharing stories and songs with us. And we had a lot of engagement on Facebook, just folks, again, you know, thanking you for your contributions. And there's lots of interest in a workshop. So hopefully maybe we can have one at Racing Magpie in the future. But I just wanted to say thank you to you, Pilamiaye, for engaging with us and participating in our winter camp.
Oh, thank you so much. Just let me know if you want to do any kind of workshop or anything. And I'm still hoop dancing too. I still do all that at school programs. Yeah. My motto is hoop till you droop. So I do that.
It's a good motto.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And for those on Facebook, thank you again for joining us. And these videos will be posted to our Racing Magpie YouTube page, so you can always reference back to them if you want to hear these stories again or share out the information. We really appreciate your engagement. Thank you so much.